A lot of people asked me to respond to the one, the only Nikocado Avocado. I think some of the people asking me to respond are sincerely interested in what I have to say about the controversy, and some of the people asking me to respond just want to hear me say that Nick is an idiot. Well, here's your door prize. Nick is a fucking idiot. I did watch and I did enjoy the video by Vegan Gains responding to Nikocado Avocado. If you haven't seen the original comments from Nick, skip it. It's boring as hell unless you really get some kind of erotic thrill out of watching a grown man break down weeping on camera over some bullshit. Vegan Gains managed to make an interesting and entertaining and informative video in response to that, and that's an art form. And Richard, I got love for you. I'm amazed you had the patience and energy to do that. I don't. There are maybe just 2 points I think Richard did not address in that video that I would like to address here and now. Point 1 is the argument from design. Now, argument from design in formal academic philosophy, we normally talk about in relation to the existence of God. People who fallaciously try to reason that we can prove that God exists because there's design inherent in the universe. But actually, it's part of a much broader problem in reasoning itself, which you might call the teleological fallacy, or just teleological thinking. Let's leave the fallacy out of it. I mean, fallacy is such a judgmental word. Teleological thinking is a problem because you're looking at the end point of something and presuming that it reflects an intention or a design. So we can make statements. I remember I read a great scientific article about why is cannibalism so unhealthy for humans, whereas many other mammals can engage in cannibalism without adverse health effects. And it went through what the chemical factors are and basically the accidents of biology, the accidents of evolution. As it happens, human physiology cannot cope with cannibalism well at all. It's terrible for us. It's really dangerous for us. And there were other mammals who can. Does that reflect something moral in the universe? Does that reflect a design or a plan or a God's intention or anything else? Nope. That's just how it worked out. And if cannibalism was the healthiest thing for you imaginable, we'd still have the same ethical questions and ethical problems with engaging in cannibalism. We'd just have to say, it doesn't cause any side effects. As it happens, we are very, very poorly evolved to cope with eating our fellow human beings, and we are quite poorly evolved biologically to cope with a diet based on meat and cheese, etc. But that is happenstance. Nikocado, his whole breakdown, his whole conniption, there's a word you don't hear every day, conniption. This is like 1930s style. I think old comic books, like from the 30s, spare me your conniption. Conniption fit. That's slang from the 30s. Old detective movies. He's having a conniption. All right. Nikocado's whole on-camera conniption, he gets so worked up by saying, are we or are we not designed to eat meat? Or you can even say this in English, are we or are we not meant to eat meat? But although life is meaningful, there's a real sense in which there is no meaning in life, in the sense that you can't look at the ends of something and think teleologically, because this exists, it is meant to be. There's a meaning or there's an intention behind the happenstance of the fact that cheese is unhealthy as hell for us. If bacon were the healthiest thing on earth, we'd still have the same arguments going on about veganism, but as it happens, it's not. And, this problem, again, it's not limited. When you say argument from design, teleological fallacy, most people will think you're talking about religion, Christianity, arguments with the existence of God. It's not limited to that, this problem. All the time, I hear left-wingers, I hear so-called anti-capitalists making arguments based on the premise that capitalism is designed to blank, that capitalism is intentionally designed to have this or that evil consequence, it's designed to have this or that weakness, it's designed to have this or that reliance. And even though it's a subtle difference, it's actually really important if you're going to engage in a critique of the capitalist system, not to start with that delusion or not to drive towards proving to it, but to look at capitalism as a bunch of social assumptions that came about unplanned, that came about pell-mell. Nobody sat down and came up with a perfect design, a utopian blueprint for what a capitalist society was supposed to be. And a great comparison on that too is, by the way, nobody ever sat down and came up with a perfect design for what a feudal society is supposed to be. Different social forces pushed and pulled at the reality of life as in Europe. As the Roman Empire fell apart, there was a king called Charlemagne. There were all these wars with the Muslim world. And there were different socioeconomic pressures in response to which you had the emergence of feudalism. And now we can look back retrospectively and come up with a checklist and say, okay, how do we define feudalism? We can look back and say, how do we define capitalism? There are certain features, and we say, okay, this is a capitalist society, and if it lacked those features, it would not be a capitalist society. But there's a sense in which there is no design, there is no intention, there is no system, and it's really misleading to even think in terms of we were meant to eat meat. We were meant to oppress the poor. We were meant to rise up in a revolution because inequality under capitalism. Life is meaningful, but in that sense, there is no meaning in life. And teleological thinking is terribly, terribly misleading, whether it's in the theater of nutritional science or in the theater of economic science. And Nick, my heart goes out to you in some ways. I've broken down weeping on camera before. I think there were a lot of reasons to break down weeping on camera. And I think it is bold, and I can respect it. Sharing your doubts, sharing your misgivings, sharing that side of your life via YouTube. I'm all for anybody who's keeping it real. But on another level, like Richard, like Vegan Gains, I'm sitting there thinking, damn, you're going to weep about this? Nutritional doubts about the adequacy of a vegan diet aren't short-term. They're not something we're going to overcome ever. They're always going to be there. We're just going to go through a period of progress where we switch from some of the most naive misconceptions of veganism. We switch from people just telling you a vegan diet doesn't have enough protein to more and more sophisticated and elaborate arguments. We're now dealing with people telling us there isn't enough DHA in the vegan diet. Unless you are a pregnant female, there is no reason to worry about DHA being an adequate diet. Pregnant females should worry. Early childhood development should worry. As an adult male, there is no scientific reason for you to worry about getting enough DHA. None. However, it's true we're progressing from an early stage of relatively jejune and stupid doubts about the adequacy of the vegan diet to more and more elaborate and sophisticated one. But those doubts will be with us always. Always. Anytime you're on a vegan diet and you feel like crap, the easiest thought to have is, maybe it's because of my vegan diet. And you know what? On that level, maybe it is. If you're on a diet that consists of pork and yogurt and you feel like crap, a thought that should come to your head is, maybe I feel like crap because I'm eating pork and yogurt, and maybe it is. On that level of bro science, of personal observation, where you're just looking in the mirror and asking yourself, how do I feel today? People are always going to have those kind of doubts, and there are always going to be rumors circulating on the internet, whether it's about DHA or protein or some crazy micronutrient or form of fat molecule we don't have a name for yet, some new science that's come out. There are always going to be doubts circulating about the vegan diet. On some level, for each of us, engaging on a vegan diet is an experiment, and the challenge is to experiment and find a diet that works with our lifestyle where I'm living, whether you're living in Colombia or Cambodia, whether you're living in Canada or China. To find something that works for you in terms of your health, it is hard work, and in so many ways you're throwing out the accumulated knowledge and experience of your own life from your childhood up to the moment when you decided to become vegan. And to some extent, you're throwing out the whole cultural experience of your parents and your grandparents going back 1,000 years. If you grew up Italian with 1,000 years of Italian food culture behind you, 1,000 years of tradition, then you decide to become vegan. You're throwing all that out. The challenge isn't just scientific. It's cultural. It's figuring out how to feed yourself in a way that feels good, a way that fits with your schedule. Not everybody has the time to boil beans for several hours. Some people are looking for a diet that's going to fit into a hectic work life. It's going to fit with so many things. There is a level on which veganism, for each of us individually when we start off, is an experiment. It's experimental. An experiment, by definition, is something you undertake without knowing whether the outcome is going to be good or bad. But I'm here to tell you, ethically, environmentally, ecologically, this experiment is really worth doing. And compared to any other political movement, any other social justice movement in the history of the world, any other moral cause you can support with your time, with your money, with your effort, with your protest, has anyone ever asked less of you to save the planet, to make the world a better place, than becoming vegan? If you want to help refugees in Syria, I was just talking to somebody on Skype a couple days ago. He went there. He went to the refugee camps on the border with Syria. He was out there with the refugees. If you want to make that sacrifice, that's asking a lot, short-term and long-term. And he was learning Arabic. He was hitting the books to learn Arabic, to do that kind of humanitarian work. Huge sacrifice. It's going to change his life forever. Don't bitch about Syrian refugees on the internet. You give a fuck? You buy that airplane ticket. You enroll in those Arabic courses. You start doing fundraising. You start handing out blankets to Syrian refugees. You can do it right now. You know what? If you're going to do this vegan thing, yes, there's an experimental aspect to it. Yes, you are going to suffer a little bit. Compared to any other movement, any other moral cause, you tell me, who has suffered less? Nikocado, when you wipe the tears off your fucking face, man up and take on that challenge. We expect better of you, and you should expect better of yourself.